Well, first of all, help our viewers understand the thinking behind this resilience budget. I'm sure there are lots of calculations, lots of projections involved. For instance, you're giving $55 million to the arts and culture sector. In the Unity budget, that was $2 million. So help us understand how your ministry comes up with these numbers.
Well, we are in a very unprecedented situation. I went through the global financial crisis. I went through the Asian financial crisis. Now, this is a crisis where we are fighting a battle on three fronts. The medical front, fighting the global pandemic, the financial front, and the economic front. The economy today is much more deeply integrated. The global economy is much more deeply integrated. And we're seeing a shocks in both the demand side and the supply side. And in turn, that causes uncertainty in financial markets. So financial markets have been reacting very strongly to this. Volatility has increased, fear has increased, credit has been squeezed. So this is a very unprecedented situation. And I think that the economic impact is going to be deeper, broader, and more prolonged. So because of that, we wanted to make sure that we are able to support Singaporeans. Our first priority is protect lives, protect livelihood, and therefore a big part of the budget go towards saving jobs, protecting our workers, and ensuring that the livelihoods are not badly disrupted. And that's the thinking behind this. And at the same time, we know that there will be groups who are more vulnerable, who will need more support, and hence the addition to the care and support package. But at the same time, while we're in the trenches fighting this war, and this is going to take some time, we must also not lose our bearing. We should set our sights on the future and look at how we can go through this and emerge stronger.
That's true. Yeah. Now, you mentioned about protecting livelihoods, and one particular group of individuals, we're talking about the self-employed here, including freelancers. In fact, this is the first time that they're getting help in a budget. And you announced that they'll be getting $1,000 a month for 9 months in that stretch in cash. What's the rationale for this?
Well, when we, in the Unity budget, we have already taken into account the needs of the self-employed in the form of our taxi drivers and the private car hire drivers. Now, as we look at this, we think that the impact is going to be broader and deeper. And indeed, even as we were preparing the budget, we had quite a lot of feedback from the self-employed because of the activities have been cut down severely. And one of the difficulties in this situation globally is that the stricter the measures we take to fight the pandemic, the deeper the economic impact. So the cut in air travel, for example, is one good example. Therefore, we think that we need to reach out to many more. We have a large number of people in the self-employed sector. The largest group will be our taxi drivers and our private car hire drivers. But I think beyond that, there are many others in that category. Your coaches, those working in the gig economy. So it's a wide range.
Yeah. As you've mentioned, it's a wide range. It almost sounds like many people could qualify for this on the surface. And I'm wondering, how do we prevent abuse?
Well, that's a very good question. And I really hope that this package is meant to support those who need it most. And if there are abuses, it is going to be difficult and we are going to have to investigate. Now, how do we prevent the abuse? First, we are going to work on what we already have, which is the workfare improvement supplement. So workfare provides support for those of the lower income group and for which the income is very uncertain. And during this time, I think they need extra support. And hence, we are providing the package. Building on that, I think we have about 55,000 of our workers on the workfare income supplement already. And then we are building on that to extend it to probably about 88,000 or so. I mean, that's our estimate at this point. But as you said, this is the first time that we're doing it. And therefore, the details have to be worked through very carefully. And that's what the ministries are now working hard on.
Now, there's also a big push for training, for these self-employed persons. But there's cash, there's training. But in terms of a longer-term security for this group of people, Are there any other options?
Well, you touch on a very important point, which is what about the longer term? And I hope that after this, we are working on what we can do to provide longer term security for this group. And for instance, in the case of our cab drivers, over the years, the NTUC has been reaching out to them and has been getting them better organized. So in that way, people have a better sense and the feedback mechanism is working a lot better. And that is why we have been able to help our cab drivers and our private car hire drivers much faster. So I'm hoping that we think through properly as to how we can do this, and I welcome suggestions on how we can do this well.
You've also mentioned about job creation, 10,000 jobs. In fact, you mentioned
Yes.
of introducing 10,000 jobs, and the public sector will be taking the lead. But I'm also wondering, where are we going to find these jobs, since I imagine that a lot of businesses will be tightening their belts as well?
Yes. Well, actually, we have two job schemes. One is the SG United traineeship schemes. These are for first-time job seekers, particularly students who have just graduated or are graduating from ITE, polytechnics, and universities. And I think it is important that they do not lose this time just looking for jobs. We'll try our best to help them, and I hope that our companies, the ones who are doing well or who have the resources to plan for a better future, will continue to hire students who are graduating. But at the same time, to make it easier for some of those who may be more distressed, but yet who wants to continue to restructure the operation and they want to prepare themselves for stronger growth in the coming, when the recovery takes place, we hope that they will also consider taking in our graduating students.
Right.
So that's one group. And I've always believed that learning on the job is going to be a very important part for any young job seeker. So we would like to do that well. At the same time, the SG United jobs will provide for a wider range of different jobs for various categories of workers. And today, the WSG has already launched the virtual work fair. So this is one way in which we can create a large number of micro jobs. Now, at the same time, the public sector is taking the lead in two ways. First, we have a hiring plan which is for the next few years. And we have asked the various ministries to bring forward the plan. We know we will need many more of this, of workers in this. So for instance, in the early childhood sector, in the healthcare sector, there will be many more members will be needed. In the areas of science and technology, we do want to continue to build up our strength. So those are the areas that we can accelerate. Then there are other jobs, more temporary in nature, which are useful for us to marshal more resources to combat COVID-19. Many of our frontline agencies are very stretched, and we are designing jobs where most people will be able to take on and to be able to help. So for instance, temperature taking and other, helping people to queue in a more orderly way and so on. So those jobs are easier to manage, and therefore we can create many more of those.
So DPM, just before we go for a short break, I just want to ask you, how many jobs do you think we will lose if, say, the pandemic worsens and goes into the next year?
Well, it is difficult to predict, first and foremost, how the pandemic will evolve. We are basically fighting a moving target. You look at how quickly it has spread to Europe and to America, and the speed at which it is transmitting is also then having knock-on effects on the economy. And as countries lock down, there will be greater repercussions. Supply chains have been disrupted. And in that way, I don't think it is possible for us to say what exactly it will be. We are predicting a recession. Our economy is going to contract, and our growth projection is between -1 and -4. Will we need to revise it further? It is hard to say at this point, but we have to be prepared for the worst.
Sure. All right, we're going to take a short breather now. But when we return, DPM Heng is going to take us through how the resilience budget isn't just aimed at helping Singapore navigate choppy waters. It also lays the groundwork for Singaporeans to emerge stronger. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Heng Swee Keat is here discussing his landmark $48 billion resilience budget. Now, as we've heard, it's aimed at helping Singapore ride out the COVID-19 pandemic and emerging stronger at the other end. So, DPM Heng, earlier we spoke about protecting jobs, including the self-employed and the freelancers. And let's just move on to other forms of support. Your care and support package.
Right.
Help us understand why 40% is in loan capital rather than just handing out the firm's cash instead.
Well, the 40% in loan capital is to support companies, and we're hoping to support companies in three ways. One is with their cost, two with their cash, and third with credit. So in the area of cost, where it is within government's control, we are trying to reduce all the costs, and therefore I've announced freezes in the fees and charges and areas which we can cut costs. Now, in the area of credit, this part is going to be very important because firms need proper credit lines. Today, credit lines have been more difficult. Some parts actually are frozen because banks are concerned about lending, and if viable enterprises cannot get credit, they will be badly affected. So it's very important for us to support viable enterprises. And in turn, if we're able to support enterprises, we will help our workers keep their jobs. And therefore, I have been urging business leaders to first make sure that you continue to be viable, and at the same time, do not resort to just sacking workers so that you can cut costs. And the help that we're providing in terms of helping you directly with the cost, helping you with cash flow, and helping you with credit lines is an important part of this. But there is another big part of it, which is the direct support to households. And this is where we are giving the cash payout. I'm doubling the cash payout, tripling the cash payouts from $100 to $300 to $300 to $900. So this will provide direct cash support to our households. And then at the same time, we are also providing tripling the grocery vouchers, which I announced earlier, for lower income households. And I'm very glad to see that various organizations have also come forward to provide support. So those are various ways in which we can support the most vulnerable in our society, as well as supporting Singaporeans in general.
So in terms of showing support and showing solidarity among the Singaporeans, political office holders like yourself have taken another pay cut. So now we're talking about 3 months in total. Why not just 1 month or 2 months? Why 3 months? And also, is this a signal for maybe other private sectors to follow suit?
Well, this is a very unprecedented crisis, and it is important for us to stand together with Singaporeans because we are in this together, and I understand the difficulties and hardships that many are facing. And so I think it is a very important aspect of our value in our society that those who are able to sacrifice more should do more. And I hope that many people will also come on board. I've read of some companies where their directors have also taken a cut, the senior management have taken a cut. So I hope that you will show the way, because it's important to show solidarity with our workers. And I also hope that I had some very good suggestions, for example, from members of the public who has been sending me messages on Facebook and others that, well, I don't need the cash. Can I donate it to someone who needs it more? So I say, well, that's very good. And we are working on this to see what is the best way in which we can flow this additional funds to those who need it more.
Now, you've also mentioned that in the event that a third package is needed and we need to dip into our reserves again in case the situation worsens, help our viewers understand what is it going to take for that to happen? What's the tipping point?
Well, our reserve should only be used for extraordinary situations. And as President Halimah, in her address to Parliament, emphasized, this is the second occasion where we used the reserves. The first was during the global financial crisis. And it's very important for us to be very careful stewards of our reserves. Now, a country with no oil, no gas, no diamond, no gold is able to build up the reserves. And the reserves in last year's budget and this year's budget form the largest component of our revenue. More than corporate income taxes, more than personal income taxes, more than GST. Now, this is, I would say, quite remarkable. And as finance minister, I am very committed to making sure that our reserves are used properly, used only for the right purpose. And the right purpose is when you face an extraordinary situation like this, we must be prepared to use it to support our people. So what will be the tipping point when we do that? As I said, the situation is evolving very rapidly. But what I'm very glad is that we have this sizable reserves to allow us to respond to any further deterioration of the situation. But at the same time, we must be, all of us in Singapore must be fully committed to not squandering our reserve, to not frittering it. And as I said in my statement, let us not use it for minor purposes and say, well, why don't we tax people less and therefore just spend reserve. It's like our parents leave us with a big piggy bank, and instead of earning our keep, we say let's break the piggy bank. And the piggy bank is not just meant for us; it's meant for our children, their children, and future generations. So we must have that resolve to do that. But we will have to use it and borrow from the piggy bank when the situation demands it.
When it's a stormy weather like what we're weathering
now. It is
now.
a very stormy weather now, and that's why I have to use this to give assurance to Singaporeans and to give assurance to the global community that Singapore has what it takes to overcome this crisis.
So you mentioned earlier, before the break, that there was, in 2009, we had a resilience package,
right.
Which you were also involved in. That was $20.5 billion to help save jobs. And again, this time the word resilience has again cropped up again, which you have called it our resilience budget. What is so different about the kind of resilience we need now compared to 2009?
Well, I think when we say resilience, we mean a certain mental fortitude that when we face adverse situations, we do not just panic, we do not just fear and become anxious and do nothing. That we must face challenges squarely and work through what needs to be done, and at the same time to stay united, to care for one another, to look after one another. And therefore, this resilience package actually complements the unity package very well. Because when I mentioned the unity package, I had in mind that all of us in Singapore must stay united as one people. And in this resilience package is that all of us must have the mental fortitude to care for one another, to be able to face adversity, and do not just look at the immediate troubles, but look at how we can get ourselves out of this tunnel and look for the light at the end of the tunnel and emerge stronger from this. But by staying together, I think we will emerge stronger as a nation, as a people.
It's been good talking to you. Thank you very much, sir, for spending your Friday evening with us.
Thank you.